Hey guys, we're going to do a video on tie rod replacements. Mostly the inner tie rod, because the outer tie rod is literally just loosen a nut, unscrew it. So it's really easy. The inner tie rod isn't really that much harder, but I didn't see anything online exactly how to do this, so I figured I'd make a quick video for you, those of you that are visual learners like me. The one difference between other tutorials that you find online for previous generation Mustangs is you actually do not need a special tool to remove this tie rod. With a lot of other ones, you need, I think, what's called a crow's wrench, like a crow's foot wrench or something. It's this weirdly shaped wrench that's meant to get you a leverage at a crazy angle, and you don't actually need that for this one because of the electric power steering rack and the way it's all set up. So let's just jump right in so you can see what I mean. And just as a heads up, I have really struggled to say tie rod end for whatever reason tonight, so bear with me. All right, so underneath the car here, so I'm not 100% sure you need to take the belly pan off, but I'm fairly certain because of some access things. The biggest thing is you'll need to be able to get, really great access over here, right up against this K-member, and then as well as to get this part off, this little crimp here on the inner part here. I know this is a little hard to see, my apologies. Let's see if I can get you some light. There we go. All right, so you can see there the inner part of the boot. That has that clamp on there, and you'll need to get access to that. It's possible you could get it from the outside, but it's going to be a lot of work. So I just took the belly pan off to make it easier. But essentially, you need to take this clamp off, and then slide the boot, and that will expose the inner tie rod end that we can use to loosen it up. I tried to do that yesterday without removing here the outer tie rod end, and I just didn't have any luck. I was able to get it off, but I wasn't able to get it back on, at least not easily. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this side off too, and then I can just take this whole thing off, count the number of rotations that it takes to get this thing off, and then just do the opposite. So if it's 15 rotations to get this off, that this has to go on to the new tie rod end with 15 rotations. So the first step I'm going to go ahead and do here is take the outer tie rod end out. You need, I believe it's a 1/4 inch for up here, and then a 15-inch wrench for here, and that'll come right off. All right, now that we have the boot off, we have exposed the outer or the inner tie rod end here. So what's interesting is this is actually different from the other side. So this is my first time working on an electronic power steering on this car. So this is new to me. But on the other side, this has little notches here going down a smooth rod, and that's for what I assume is the gear inside the unit to grab onto and move the rod back and forth. On this end, there is no such thing, so interesting. But if you start on the other side and it looks different, that's normal. I'm right there with you. Looks new to me too. So the next thing to do is all you got to do is grab a crescent wrench. All you got to do is grab a crescent wrench and loosen this guy up and start to unwind it, and then we can pull it out. All right, I lied. There was one more step in between. So I got this loose, and then I remembered that you can't easily, because of the angle here, it's at a very aggressive angle, you can't easily loosen this up with your tie rod and outer end on. So this is going to be where you pull this outer tie rod end off, count how many rotations you got out of it with everything facing straight up like this, and then make sure, mark that, and then when it comes time to put it on the new one, I'm gonna do that in reverse and just tie it back on. All right, so I got the old one out of the car. It ended up being exactly 16 turns for me. I got the new one here. Just one word of advice. Until you get this in there and get the ability to get some leverage on the end here, it's really hard to get this ball joint to move, and you need the ball joint to move to tighten it. Because you won't have the clearance to get dead on and be able to just twist it, so you kind of have to turn it like that. So just something to keep in mind as you're installing this on the car for the first time. You need to get a couple threads started. So what you can do, as you can see here, I can't get it It doesn't show up super well, but I can't get it straight enough to get it to start. So what you got to do is you got to go to the other side and turn the wheel so that this is, you know, more inside the power steering unit to give you more leverage, and then you can get that straight on shot you need. And then once you get a couple started, then you'll be able to tighten it down. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna slide this over, then get the new one tightened down, and then we'll go to reassembly. All right, now that we got that on, tightened, don't forget to put your little plastic sleeve on. We can put the boot on. Make sure you put this boot on before you put the outer tie rod end, otherwise you have to take it apart, put it back together. So wanna make sure that your clamp here is on the outside of the boot for when you slide that on. And make sure you also get this on before you tighten the boot, or before you put the outer tie rod down end on as well. All right, and now we can go ahead and put this on and do 16 and turn it 16 times. All right, so that is good to go for the most part. So we got the outer tie rod end on 16 turns, just like it came off. Tighten down here to the knuckle. We got the boot slipped over. Make sure that you're not covering the bit here. It's really hard to see the texture with this light, but you see the little flat spots here on the tie rod. This is the part you put a wrench on to adjust so you can adjust your toe. So make sure that you've gone up and over that into further. And then lastly, as well as put the clamp on. And then lastly, it's time to put this clamp on. Which, just in case you're not familiar with these guys, they use a special set of pliers to crimp them down. To tighten these guys down, you put that big flat spot there that protrudes further out. You put that in between the jaws, and then you just crimp it down. All right, and then that is what it'll look like when it's done. And as you can see, that I just stuck the jaws. It's really hard to show you, but you just stick the jaws on each side of this part here and clamp it together. So once you're done with that, the only thing left you have to do is adjust your front toe. So, theoretically, I guess if you had installed this and counted the exact number of turns out here, there's a potential that, yeah, you're close enough that you might not care. But if this is a track car or a car where you really care about your tire wear, I would recommend re-getting alignment, whether you do it yourself, just measuring, the distance with tape measures, or you take it to a shop and get it realigned. But if you do one, you might get away with it. If you do two, it's very unlikely that it'll be as successful. So I highly recommend to go get an alignment after you're done with this. All right, guys, so that is gonna do it for our tie rod replacement video. As you can see, it's fairly simple, especially if you already have the belly pan or the whole front bumper off like I did. If you don't have that off, it could be a little bit more work for you. Like I said, you probably can come at it from the side. It'll just be a little bit more work. A little bit more of a struggle. Up to you on which path you choose. If you do end up doing this yourself and have feedback of whether it was extremely hard or easy or whatever to do it a different way, please drop it in the comments for other people that might watch this video. In the meantime, if you have any questions or you just want to chat or anything like that, feel free to drop a comment, reach out to me. I'm always happy to help. All right, guys, thanks for watching.